Welcome back to the OCBC Arena. It's day 2 of the Davis Cup Asia Oceania Group 3 encounter between Vietnam and Singapore. Singapore were in action just a short while ago through Shahid Alam. He was defeated pretty convincingly in the end. And Singapore now have a big task at hand in this second rubber, because the player from Vietnam is someone you are very impressed with, Duncan. That's Darren.
Yeah, Shazad. So Lee Hong Nam is a really accomplished player. I mean, he's only 22 this year, and he started tennis when he was 7. And if you look at his track record since the first year he played, his record has only gotten better. So he turned pro, or he went on the ATP in 2013, and year on year he's gotten better, and he's now had a career high ranking of 385. This year he's 415. So I think this is going to be a real solid test for Steve. I mean, he's the top ranked player in the whole tournament, Hong Nam. And yesterday's match against the Sri Lankan player was against another ATP player, and that was a match of booming serves, 14 aces between them. It's going to be a match of really high quality today. And if Steve can play the way he played yesterday, I think we are in for a real treat. I mean, these two players are extremely fit, and these two players they definitely can hold their own on court. So it'll be really fun to watch.
Let's remind you about Steve Ng as well, because he played superbly well. But just quickly looking at that record of Lee Hong Nam, and a player that can only get better and better as time progresses. And he is obviously the best player that Vietnam have.
Absolutely.
At the moment. 22 years of age, as you can see. And he's already had 19 appearances in the Davis Cup. 15 wins out of 19. Brilliant. But just going to Steve Ng now, and we were pretty impressed with him, how he took on Mohammad Garib. And again, we talked about this phrase, what could have been. That really could have been a case there, because he was 5-1 up in the first set and went on to lose 5-7.
Yep. So that was a really good match by Steve. I mean, 5-1 up in the first set. I think the nerves got the better of him, but he still came back in the second set. And I think the third set, the experience of Garib came through. But there's a lot of potential in Steve, and he plays some really good tennis. He hits the ball well. He's very solid. He's very fit. And I think today is going to be a good test for the Singaporean. I mean, this match against Hong Nam is going to really push him. It's going to stretch him, and I think we're going to see some really high quality tennis today.
Mind you, Lee Hong Nam is the only Vietnamese to have ever won a Grand Slam title, junior level, of course. Who won the US Open doubles, boys doubles, and Steve Ng is the only Singaporean to have ever won an ITF tournament.
It's a good start by Steve. That's a really good first serve. I think you'll be disappointed he missed that, Steve. You're not going to get many returns like that. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Steve uses that serve of his. He's got a really heavy serve, and how Hong Nam uses the pace against him. It'll be interesting to watch.
Well, the unforced errors starting early, I'm afraid. And a couple of break points already for Lee Hong Nam. That's nice.
That's what I was talking about, using the first serve to his advantage. I mean, he's got a really big first serve, and that's how he's gonna start his points off on his serve if he can. You get a weak return and you open up the court.
So the first game goes to Lee. Already broken his opponent. It's a good start for the Vietnamese.
I think Steve might be a bit disappointed with that one. I think I don't think Hoang Nam did much in that game. I think Steve made all the unforced errors. Advantage is that Steve has started serving really well. I mean, his first serve percentage is relatively high. It should be an interesting one if they both can keep this up.
Now, what we saw in that first match was Shaidala managed to break his opponent Trin quite early on. Let's see if that can happen here. But winners like that, he might do it.
That's a really good shot. Good execution and inside-out double-hander backhand. Not the easiest shot to execute. I'm glad he went for it. I think he needs to take this kind of risks today. You can tell that Hoang Nam starting to turn up the pressure a lot. I mean, stepping in, taking the ball nice and early. It's putting Steve under a lot of pressure.
Moving Steve Ng around Lee, he's doing well.
And you can see where he's standing to hit those. He's standing well, well within the baseline, and he's taking it as early as he can. He's going to put a lot of pressure on Steve. And these matches are going to go this way. Whoever takes the initiative, if they execute a shot, then it puts the other player under a tremendous amount of pressure.
Comfortable at the moment for Lee.
Very heavy ground stroke, Shazad. You can tell that Hoang Nam is very comfortable from the back. I mean, those last 3 shots, especially the last one on the backhand, had so much pace. Zipped off the court, and this court's already considered to be quite slow.
Well, actually, I think Lee will be kicking himself for not winning that point because he was doing brilliantly until then.
That was an interesting choice of shot. I mean, I thought he would have gone down the line and opened up, but I guess he tried something different. Good scrambling by Steve though. I think he's prepared to fight for everything today.
Well, he needed that.
And
he really did.
And that's the serve I'm talking about. I mean, he's got a very big serve. I mean, Steve has got a really heavy serve, and I think that's going to be key today on how he takes these points from Hoang.
Oh, unlucky for Steve Hoang, because that serve really set him up, didn't it?
Yeah,
really.
Absolutely, and that's exactly what he needs to do. I mean, same with in the first match when Shahid played his opponent. You know, against a player like Hoang Nam, you need to create your chances. He's not going to give you anything. Very heavy return again by Hoang Nam.
He's finding it hard to respond to that, Steve Hoang. When he's forced the issue, actually he's getting some joy.
Yeah, and I think Steve understands that he needs to take some risks, and it's good that he's doing it. I mean, that last forehand, it's a risky one, but it's better than sitting back, you know, and it paid dividends. I'm glad he's going for it though. I mean, it's a bit frustrating, but I'm glad he's going for it. Matches like these, you need to take you really need to take your chances. You really need to create something for yourself. I mean, Hoang Nam's a very accomplished player, and he's played on ATP. He's not going to give you anything.
Oh, I thought that was a tight call. Looked like a brilliant shot. Just out.
I mean, Shazad, you can't on screen you can't really see how fast Hoang Nam is hitting the ball, but right where we are at courtside, he takes the ball so early on Steve's serve. It's a little bit scary when you watch it from where we are.
Great passing shot from Steve Hoang.
And that's a good shot. I mean, yesterday Steve was struggling a little bit with the backhand passing shot. I'm quite sure Daniel would have told him, you know, you don't actually need to hit the hardest backhand to pass an opponent. And this was a very well weighted passing shot. Look at that. Very high percentage. He just picked his spot and he went for it.
There's a certain confidence about Steve Hoang at the moment. That's Lee Hoang Nam starting to get into full flow here, isn't it?
Yeah, you can tell that's really his comfort zone. I mean, everything on the rise, everything early, puts so much pressure on the opponent. And he looks confident.
I like that serve. Steve Hoang doing well, as Darren pointed out. Serving well. That's what he can control, and he's
Absolutely.
doing that well.
And he's doing that really well. So Steve is serving at 82%, which is excellent serving.
Lee, by the way, is at 40. Those ground strokes, so confident. Playing them beautifully.
Really heavy ground strokes. I mean, you look at them coming off the court, and Steve is really struggling with the pace.
Again, all directed by Lee. He knows what he wants to do. Becoming a tough old game for Steve Hoang.
So we spoke about this yesterday, Shazad. If you're going to run around on forehand, you need to create that angle for yourself. If not, it's bread and butter for Hoang Nam, and he's just going to hit into the open court. And again, he tried, but he didn't do enough with the approach shot. And that's where you set yourself up, because Hoang Nam's gonna do that all day long.
So that gives Lee a 3-love lead now in this first set. But there are very positive signs as far as you're concerned for Steve Hoang.
I think Steve is going to be frustrated at certain things, but he shouldn't be upset at himself. He's gone out there. He's obviously got a game plan in place, and he's trying. You can tell he's trying to keep the ball as deep as he can. He's putting a lot of pressure, as much as he can, on Hoang Nam. The only difference, I think, is that Hoang Nam is probably more used to this kind of pace. And he's played a lot of matches. Hoang Nam's played a lot of matches. I mean, he's ranked 418th in the world. And he had a huge match yesterday that would have done a tremendous amount of boost to his confidence. But I don't think Steve has got anything to be ashamed of. I think he needs to go out there and he needs to carry on doing what he's doing. And it's all going to come together.
We did see Steve take on Mohammad Garib yesterday. He didn't shy away. He went for his shots. That's how he took a 5-1 lead, a commanding 5-1 lead, which he later, of course, lost. But he's kind of showing shades of that at the moment, isn't he?
Absolutely. I think he's trying. Well, he's not trying. I mean, he's playing exactly what he played yesterday. And the only difference between yesterday and today is that Hoang Nam is very confident at the baseline, and he's obviously a very fast player as well. And he creates these points. He creates the openings. And he puts a lot of pressure on his opponents. If you watch the match against the Sri Lankan player yesterday, 14 aces between them,
yeah.
And the standard of play was really high. And I think all of this really speaks volumes about Hoang Nam.
Yeah, both ATP ranked players, of course. Yesterday's matches. Just referring to that match, Lee Hoang Nam was playing Harshana Godamana, who's also in the 800s in the rankings, and he dropped a set. He lost the first set, 3-6, 6-4, 7-6. He won on a tiebreak at the end, so he was pushed all the way. And from all accounts, it was a fantastic match.
It was a brilliant match. I think that match was one to savor for a long time in Singapore history. And there you can tell what Hoang Nam's trying to do. He's not giving Steve the time. He's going and he's hitting these really heavy approach shots, and he's trying to take the net away.
That is bread and butter for a player like Lee Hoang Nam.
And I think Steve there, I mean, he created his opportunities, right? And that was great. It was good to see him swinging out. And that's exactly what he needs to do.
Really well played there by Steve Owen. It's a kind of a look of incredulity from Lee Hoang Nam.
And that was a really good play by both players, and credit to both players. I think for Lee to get that smash in the first place, and then for Steve to hit the return that he did on that. Look at that. That's great. It's good half volley as well.
Love that look on Lee's face as well. Sheer power from Lee Hoang Nam.
That's his favorite shot. If you go to any YouTube reel with Lee Hoang Nam and you Google it, and you realize that that's his favorite shot, the inside out down the line forehand. Look at how fast his racket moves through this ball.
Brilliant. That is really good work from Steve Owen. Counterpunch superbly.
And that's what I was talking about, Shazad. I mean, Steve took a chance. He really took a chance on a really good first serve. He took a chance, and he opened up the court really well. The execution of this forehand was brilliant. Look at that. He opened up the court, came in, and that's all you need to do. You don't need to hit one of those fabulous winners. All you need to do is play it back to the open court and put pressure on your opponent, and it's paid dividends.
And by the way, whilst we're admiring how Steve was playing, let's just remember he just broke Lee Hoang Nam as well.
Exactly, absolutely, and that was really important.
There's just no accounting for someone with that kind of talent. Lee Hoang Nam is that forehand again. Brilliant.
And for those of you who are watching and you're wondering how he's hitting those shots, just look at how fast he accelerates through the racket. Look at that speed on the racket.
But Steve Owen is saying, I can do that kind of thing too.
You know what I like, Shazad, is that Steve is not holding back. I mean, it's easy to get overwhelmed by the situation of playing against.
You feel he's going for a shot.
He's going for it, and you can tell the first serve percentage is high, and he's going for it, and it's not getting to him. And I think that's what gives the fans something to look at. I mean, it's a really good match of tennis. Hitting quality is high, and both players creating opportunities and going for it.
Again, there's just not much you can respond to a shot like that.
Some of these returns by Lee, absolutely phenomenal.
So now, a couple of break points for Lee Hoang Nam. This has been a good weapon for Steve Hoang.
77% for serve. Very impressive by Steve.
We're just picking up his serve and he's double faulted.
He'll be disappointed with that, I think.
And to lose, to be broken on the double fault as well, that's going to hurt a bit. Li Hongnam now 4-1. Back on his service again, so pressure on Steve Hoang here. But very encouraging.
I think he's playing a good. I think both of them are playing a good game of tennis. The only difference is that Hongnam obviously sees the ball a lot faster, and some of those returns, I mean, they're absolutely not returnable. I mean, on the serves and the kind of rackets. I mean, if you look at how he hits his forehand and how fast he accelerates through the ball, those shots are really heavy. And if you play against someone like that, that split second is the difference between getting back and really just being a winner. And I think Steve needs to look out for those. I think Hongnam is really, really sharp on his forehand. That's his big weapon.
You can mitigate against that forehand shot though, right? I mean, you can try as much as you can.
I mean, tennis is a little bit strange. If your opponent is going to be hitting winners all day, sometimes you just got to say, you know what, I just give it to you because hitting winners all day. But no one hits winners all day, so eventually something's got to give. I think what's important is that Steve needs to keep playing the way he's playing, and opportunities will present themselves.
Interesting, because Hongnam's first serves 7 out of 12 at the moment, not great. Another case in point. The Vietnamese players so far, their serves haven't been something to watch out for.
Oh. That's that forehand again. And you guys can't see it on camera, but it zips off the court really, really fast.
Which is interesting because it's not a fast court.
It's not a fast court at all.
Clearly out.
He went for it.
Yeah, he's not holding back here, and that is a good sign for Steve Hoang. But it does mean you're playing the percentages a bit.
Exactly, but I think that's what Steve needs to do.
That's now 8 out of 15 first serves that have gone in. The unforced errors, not so many of them today so far.
But I think the one telling statistic is that Hongnam has hit very few unforced errors today.
Yeah. A little bit luck there for Steve Hoang. He's not going to mind. He's done well to bring that back, Steve Hoang. At deuce now.
Looking a little bit loose, Hoang Nam. Couple of unforced errors, very uncharacteristic of him.
Opportunity here for Steve once again to put pressure on this serve.
That's some very heavy hitting from Hoang Nam. And he's really dictating the pace of this match, Shazad. If you look at it, he's standing and he's dictating the pace. He's going and he's moving Steve all over the court. I think Steve needs to stop that flow, that momentum a little bit. I think he needs to go for it a little bit more.
He worked very hard for that game.
And again, it's sorry, Shazad. And again, it's all that pressure that Lee is putting on Steve. He's hitting very heavy, very deep, a lot of spin, and it's putting Steve under a lot of pressure, and that led to an unforced error.
So 5-1 now. Lee leads this first set. Getting a good first serve from Steve Hoang. He's serving well.
He's serving well. He's serving well. I mean, take nothing away from serve, but take nothing away from Lee, who's returning even better.
Yeah.
I mean, look at that. That was a really good first serve. And I think Lee is just getting hang of the serve and he's reading better now. I mean, now that he's used to where Steve is going to serve, I think he's really starting to read it. And that was a really good return.
That is a couple of set points now for Lee. So that's first set to Lee Hoang Nam. Steve Hoang outplayed, but you have been encouraged what you've seen, and there are signs that he can cause more problems.
That's right, Shazad. I mean, no shame in the set. He served well, especially the last game, but some of the returning by Lee was phenomenal. I mean, the last service return alone on the double and the backhand put so much pressure on Steve. I think most other players might have committed an error, and I think Steve has gone out and he's played and he's stuck to his game plan. And I think he needs to do more of that in the second set. It's encouraging to see. He's going out there and he's taking the game to Lee. And Lee needs to earn the points. Lee's been hitting the winners. And he's been putting Steve under a lot of pressure. And I think that's very important.
We are seeing shades of how he played against Mohammad Garib yesterday when he pushed the veteran, who's been a real star of the Davis Cup in the past, and we see a new rising star of the Davis Cup in Asia Oceania, Lee Hoang Nam. And Steve Hoang is doing well, creditably, but there is no doubt about the quality of his opponent today. He is the highest ranked of all the players that we've got here in Singapore. 8 countries here at the moment. We just remind you of the pools: Vietnam, Kuwait, Sri Lanka and Singapore in Pool A. Vietnam currently leading proceedings, and it's Iran, Qatar, Syria and Malaysia in Pool B, and Syria have the edge at the moment, and they upset Iran yesterday, which I thought was an interesting result.
I mean, if you ask me, Shazad, I think Steve might actually be playing better than how he played yesterday. But I think Lee is just showing...
It's just the quality of the opponent.
I think Lee is just showing why he's ranked where he is. And I think he's showing that all these little things in tennis really count for a lot in a match. It'll be interesting to see the second set. I mean, Steve really has got nothing to lose and he needs to really go for it. And he should carry on playing the way he's playing. I think he's playing a really good match.
Nice deep shot, forehand from Steve Hoang.
A little bit of luck there. Everyone needs it. Even Lee gets his fair share of it.
Just the power and the way he dictates things is so impressive, Lee Hong Nam. Yep, few unforced errors creeping in this second set already.
And you know, Shazad, you can tell the difference between what happened in the first set and second set. I mean, Lee made his shots, but his number of unforced errors that he's hit is really very low, and that's really the main difference. I mean, it's not all about hitting winners. It's also about keeping your error count low. If you look at the top players in the world, you see players go through an entire set hitting single-digit unforced errors, and that's really the difference between the two players at the moment.
This is what we were talking about. That is what he wants, Steve Hoang. He needs more of those. When he's in full flight like that, very little you can do to stop Lee.
And again, all from that first return. Look at how deep that return comes. Steve almost had to kneel on the ground to get that and opens up the court.
Save one break point there.
The depth of shot by Lee, it's really putting a lot of pressure on Steve. And again, you know, when you're watching on the camera, it doesn't look as fast, but we're sitting at courtside and you can tell how fast that return is coming back. And it doesn't give Steve a lot of time at all.
So the first break of the second set, 2-love up, Lee Hoang Nam.
Few unforced errors creeping into Steve's game now, and he's getting a little bit frustrated at himself. That's just unstoppable. That forehand, there's nothing you can do about it. When your opponent is playing like that, sometimes you just have to tell them it's a good shot. That forehand was phenomenally accurate.
He just raced through that third game, didn't he, Lee Hoang Nam?
And I really like how he accelerates. Look at how fast his racket moves through the ball. And it just generates so much pace on that forehand, and he's able to put it anywhere on court. I think that's the most damaging part of the forehand. I mean, he's gone inside out, he's gone down the line, and I think Steve doesn't really know what to expect when that forehand comes off Lee's racket. So credit to Lee. I mean, that's not an easy shot on the high part of the net. That's not an easy shot at all.
Just must remind you, this is a young man, Lee Hoang Nam, who's risen through the ATP rankings. It's been a meteoric rise, and it can only get better and better.
Exactly. I mean, and you can tell why. He takes the ball really early. He moves really fast. He makes so few unforced errors. I counted 3 unforced errors this set, and maybe 5 in the previous set. It's quite amazing the level of tennis that he's playing.
So to stay in this really now, Steve's got to win on his serve here. Oh, he's got some serious problems.
That's brave. That's brave. That's what he needs to do. Full credit to Steve. I think that's something that shows, and he knows that that's what he needs to do, and he executed that perfectly.
Again, it was those deep shots that have just deceived and made it difficult for Steve Hoang.
I like how Lee followed up with that shot and came into the net, and he immediately reduced the reaction time that Steve had. I think that's a sign of a very confident player.
Well, talking of confidence, Lee Hoang Nam has got plenty of that, and sometimes tries to play slightly more than he needs to.
But full credit to Steve. I mean, he's there and he's really giving it his all. He's swinging, shoulders are nice and relaxed, and you can tell that Hoang Nam's having a little bit of trouble with that pace as well. That's a good idea, right? It was
the right idea, wasn't it? It was just an execution of it.
That's the play that he needs, and I'm glad that he tried that. That serve and volley tactic. That was a really good one.
We've really not seen much of that.
No, we've not seen it at all. In today's modern game, it's a little bit difficult, where everyone's hitting so hard and returning so fast. That serve and volley game is actually dwindling a little bit.
That is unfortunate. Broken again. And he's cruising Lee Hoang Nam in the second set. And it looks like it could be all over, unless Steve Hoang can break him back here.
What a shot by Lee. That's such a sign of confidence to come in, hit the drive volley from behind the service line. It's a lot of authority in that shot. And you can tell, I mean, even though he missed that, he knew exactly what he was going for. He spotted the open court, he created that point for himself. I think Lee knew exactly what he was trying, and a little smile on his face, he knew he should have done a lot better.
Excellent work from Lee.
The 0-1-2. And this time putting it behind the player. Really smart play from the Vietnamese.
Good recovery there from Steve.
And that's the problem with the drop shot. If you don't pull it off to perfection, it sets up for the opponent and he's going to punish you for it. And I think Steve, that's exactly what happened, and Steve came in the easiest of putaways.
It's 5 for Lee Hong Nam.
I tell you this, Shazad, Steve is not playing badly, but Lee Hong Nam has shown up and he's dictating every single point. And I think that's the player that showed up today, and he's just controlling the entire match. Steve hasn't played a bad match at all, but Lee Hong Nam is just showing why he's ranked where he is on the ATP circuit today.
Yeah, I think you made the point earlier that there's actually absolutely no shame in this performance today from Steve Hoang, and while he is being outplayed, he has taken the game as much as he can.
Absolutely. I mean, when the opportunities have come, he's been there and he's made it. But those opportunities have not been. There haven't been many opportunities for him, and that's because Lee Hong Nam has turned in a masterclass today. And
I would venture to say that Steve probably hasn't played players of that kind of caliber necessarily too often.
Not often. And this is going to be a really good learning point for Steve as well. I mean, look at, he's got a nice smile on his face. I mean, that's good. It means he's enjoying himself. You know, he hasn't gotten sucked into the whole occasion of I'm playing someone who's ranked so much higher than me. And I think he's having a lot of fun as well.
I got to say, the body language is very different from what we saw from Shahid Alam in the first match. It's a lot more positive, even though he's getting completely thrashed here, score-wise. And this is the weapon, I think, that has been effective at certain parts of this match.
That's a really good serve that Steve has. It's very, very heavy.
Second ace of the match, and that gets quite a cheer. By the way, he's had 2 aces, none for Lee, who had 8, I believe,
yesterday. Yeah.
Brilliant. And that is the best game he has had so far, Stephen.
That is a brave second serve, Shazad. That's a really brave second serve. And he was going for it, you can tell.
2 aces.
That was like a first serve on the second serve. Little smile on his face. He knew what he was going for. And I'm glad he's having fun out there.
Excellent. Yeah, you can always say you've aced a world 400, ranked 400 player in the world. Meanwhile, I have to say, Lee Hong Nam, his first serve's in 20 out of 35. That return from Lee Hong Nam.
That's so difficult to
After
play.
a very good forehand as well from Steve.
That's so difficult to play. He created a space for himself. That little bit of space that he created for himself, incredible.
That is one of the shots of the match. That backhand. Unstoppable. And he's now got a couple of match points, Lee Hong Nam. Sheer class from Lee Hong Nam, who has cantered through this match against Steve Ng, but plenty of credit to the Singaporean as well.
Absolutely. I think both players played really well. I think Steve went there with a battle plan, executed it. But you know, Lee Hong Nam just shows why he is the player he is. I mean, he went there and he completely took control of the match. I mean, even some of and his returns on serve have been brilliant. I mean, better than yesterday. And the little space that he creates for himself with that forehand is a real weapon that Lee Hong Nam has, and it gave Steve so many problems today.
Just take a look at this. Brilliant. And he's doing that almost every other shot, Lee Hong Nam. And we have been served up, I think you used the word earlier, a masterclass. That's exactly what we got today. And he's done brilliantly. And Vietnam have won the rubber, by the way, have won the tie against Singapore. We still have a doubles match to come. That'll be around a half an hour from now. We'll be back for that. But here, Lee Hong Nam has beaten Steve Ng 6-1, 6-1.
Thanks. Good. Single gear.